and gentlemen.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the HazMat podcast, episode number 17. And today I want to talk about asbestos in soil. It's quite a big subject. It applies to normal households and also commercial building sites or demolition sites. And I want to go through some of the issues around asbestos being found in soil. So number one, where does asbestos in soil come from? Well, we know it's a naturally occurring mineral that comes out of the ground, but only in very specific areas. The main time you will find asbestos in soil is from an old building or structure that's been demolished maybe some time ago, and remnants are left in the soil over many, many years and then potentially discovered or dug up at some point in the future. The other thing is maybe old asbestos water pipes or some sort of ground surfaces that were asbestos being deleted or left behind, and over time they're found in the soil during an excavation or something like that. The main reason for this podcast is more for the typical homeowner, and over the years we've had jobs where people have found asbestos in their backyard when they're digging up a new garden or making a sandbox for the kids or whatever it may be. We've even done a few schools where they are redeveloping and have found maybe there's an old shed 50 years ago that's been demolished, and they've found bits and pieces of asbestos in the ground where we've been called to clean that up. So where does it come from? It's usually from an old structure that has fallen to bits or been demolished and not cleaned up correctly, or something that was put in the ground on purpose and has deteriorated over time. Now, first of all, is it a risk? And a big question is, if I plant vegetables in my garden and I find remnants of asbestos cladding, do I have to throw out the vegetables? Are they safe to eat? And the advice around that is essentially they're perfectly fine to eat, because asbestos is a respirable hazard, so it has nothing to do with ingestion. As far as we know, there are continuing scientific studies around that, but at this point in time, eating a vegetable that's been grown in a garden that may have asbestos, cement, debris in it, I don't believe is actually a risk to your health. How do we treat an area that's been found to have asbestos debris or contamination in the soil? Well, the first thing is trying to get a handle on the length and breadth of the job. You know, how far is the contamination going and how deep? Now, it's very tricky to really nail that down 100%, because without X-ray vision, most people have no idea how far debris has gone through a soil area or how deep it goes. Meaning, you can dig as much soil out as you want, but have you really got all of it out? So it really is a little bit hit and miss. It can be indications made from sampling, meaning digging into the soil and looking to see, or sampling material that you might find to get a better picture. But overall, unless you dig to China, you're never going to be 100% certain that it's all been captured, because who knows over time how far do things seep in, or how deep did they occur in the first place. So in terms of removal, usually what's done is a specific area will be mapped out and agreed that this is the delineated area. We will excavate to a certain depth, and then either a material like plastic sheeting or something like that is put along, with some maybe some warning tape, asbestos warning tape, to let anybody in the future know if you're going to excavate to this depth, it's safe, but below that potentially there could be asbestos. The other way is to bury it even deeper. So you may have a veggie garden and you've found a little bit of broken cladding or something like that in it, and another way to be sure you're getting some safe separation from the material is by actually adding a lot more soil that you know to be clean. So you can either bury it or dig it to a certain depth and put some sort of a barrier or membrane between the old excavation and the new material on top. How far do you go? As I've mentioned, who knows? I mean, it's really, somebody has to make a judgment call, but as long as one thing you can be sure, if you're adding new material that's asbestos free, or if you're at least digging to a certain depth and then covering and making signage available, so in 50 years if someone digs that area they will find the warning and they can be duly informed that there may be asbestos beneath that. That's about as far as you can really go. So all of that being said, asbestos in soil itself is not a respirable hazard as long as it's not being agitated. If you are growing plants or vegetables in that type of environment, there doesn't seem to be any direct hazard. If you happen to ingest a vegetable that's come out of a garden that may have asbestos siding around it or something like that. And in terms of treatment, you can go to an agreed depth and delineate that or cover over the top of it with some clean material. That seems to be the most straightforward ways of dealing with it. Just on that, a couple of occurrences have been that we've had here at HazMat. We've had a garden footpath, a concrete footpath in the backyard of a property down to the garden. Contractors were doing landscaping work. They dug up the old concrete footpath and actually found asbestos had been used underneath as almost like a base course layer. So some kind of leftover broken bits of asbestos mixed in with a few stones and a few bits of this and that. That was actually used as the base layer before they poured the concrete on top. So that was a nasty wee surprise for us to come and tidy up. Other occurrences have been, as I mentioned previously, old sheds or garages or sides of a house or something like that, which has been disposed of just in the ground and left to its own devices, and it's been discovered a long time later. So that's about it for asbestos in soil. I'm Chris from HazMat. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe, like and share this episode and this channel. Thank you, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the HazMat podcast. Ladies and gentlemen.